สวัสดีครับ Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you very much, Nayeli, for handing me the stage from New York. My name is Nuttapong Namsirikul, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's event, Uniting Business, Sustainability in ASEAN. It is a great honor to welcome you and all of our online viewers to this event, live from the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, ESCAP, in Bangkok, Thailand. The Leaders Summit has been bringing together a global audience of stakeholders from the United Nations, government, business, civil society, and all of our local networks. The Uniting Business Sustainability in ASEAN Conference, the in-person part of the Leaders Summit, is following the Latin American and Chinese virtual sessions and is now live here in Bangkok and retransmitted simultaneously to wherever you may be in the world. In the UNESCAP conference hall today, our great audience includes business leaders, UN representatives, Global Compact local networks, and all of you joining us live across Asia and the world. This event was co-created by 5 Global Compact local networks, covering 6 countries: Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, and Thailand. In partnership with UNESCAP and UN Resident Coordinators Office in Thailand, through this event, we want to inform, inspire, and catalyze local and regional solutions for advancing policies that will drive economic growth and accelerate progress towards sustainable development goals in the ASEAN region. And with its interconnectedness, ASEAN is raising the bar on growth and innovation. ASEAN can be a game changer in uniting business for sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, in this opening plenary of this event, we will hear from sustainability champions and also the UN leaders. And now let's give a warm welcome to our speakers and launch Uniting Business Sustainability in ASEAN. Ladies and gentlemen, and now may I invite the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the UNESCAP to deliver an opening remark. Please welcome Her Excellency Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana. Please welcome Her Excellency on stage.
Ms. Sanda Oyambo, Assistant Secretary General and CEO of UN Global Compact, Ms. Ruenfadi Suwanmongkol, Secretary General of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Thailand, Mr. Lee George Lam, Chair of the ESCAP Sustainable Business Network or ESBN, Mr. Nopadol Dech Udon, Chief Sustainability Officer of Charoen Pokpan Group and Secretary General of the Global Compact Network Thailand, Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. On behalf of ESCAP, it is my great pleasure to warmly welcome you to the Uniting Business Sustainability in ASEAN that ESCAP has organized together with the UN Global Compact. We are meeting at a critical juncture as countries gradually open their borders and lift restrictions that were put in place due to the pandemic. Over the last 2 years, countries in the Asia-Pacific region have been adversely affected by the pandemic and the ensuing socio-economic downturns it has caused. In Southeast Asia, the pandemic has exacerbated existing inequalities and severely impacted the most vulnerable sections of the population. The crisis has shown that the region needs to invest in its health infrastructure, address the digital divide across the region, and improve trade and transport connectivity. While climate change may have fallen out of public eye during the most challenging parts of the pandemic, it did not disappear. Natural disasters affecting the region are a reminder that much work needs to be done in building disaster resilience in each country. The immediate challenge facing countries in the region is to regain the momentum on sustainable development. Tackling these challenges will require public-private partnership and cooperation. We need coordinated action by governments, businesses, and civil society to build back better and greener for achieving the Sustainable Development Goal and tackling climate change. Here, I would like to highlight key areas relevant to our discussion today. First, the private sector has a vital role to play. Businesses across sectors need to embrace a transformational change to decarbonize their operation and supply chain and be fully aligned with the goal of the Paris Agreement. Second, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which are the backbone of the private sector, represent a wide range of businesses that can contribute to sustainable development. This is also true for the ASEAN region, where MSMEs are an integral part to economic growth and are significant generators of employment. And lastly, the ESCAP Sustainable Business Network, or maybe more popularly known as ESBN, consisting of representatives of the private sector from the region, the Asia-Pacific region, has adopted the Asia-Pacific Green Deal for Business Declaration as a roadmap for companies to take the lead on climate action. ESBN, through the Green Deal, will lead private sector sustainability efforts to accelerate a green transformation in the region. We stand ready to support the Asia-Pacific Green Deal for business. I wish you a successful, lively, as well as fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana. And as she said, there are so many works to be done, and there will be so many topics that we will be discussed today. And thank you very much. And next, we will hear from the Assistant Secretary General and the CEO of the United Nations Global Compact, Ms. Sandra Ojiambo. Ms. Ojiambo could not be here in person, but fortunately, she will share her thoughts with us virtually. And now the stage is all yours, Ms. Ojiambo.
Excellencies, colleagues, business leaders, and distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to welcome you, although from afar, to Bangkok for this Uniting Business, Sustainability in ASEAN event, which is part of the 2022 UN Global Compact Leaders Summit. Many thanks to ESCAP, the UN Economic Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, and the Global Compacts Network in Thailand for organizing this in-person session as part of our 26-hour virtual Leaders Summit. This year, the Leaders Summit, our annual flagship event, brings together over 10,000 leaders from business, civil society, the United Nations, and governments from across the globe. The role of this ASEAN session is to convene key stakeholders, to measure progress towards the SDGs in Southeast Asia, to address gaps in knowledge as well as resources and funding, to identify opportunities for meaningful partnership, and to build upon the global network of leaders that are so committed to driving ambition and action on the SDGs. The program today is the result of the joint efforts by UN Global Compact's local networks in Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei, with Thailand acting as the host. The UN Global Compact is all about change on a global scale. We aim to accelerate the collective impact of business by upholding our 10 principles and delivering on the SDGs through accountable companies and ecosystems to enable change. Now, the ASEAN region is so critical to our global mission. There are many opportunities in the region, including in Thailand, where the UN Global Compact can help advance responsible leadership and tap into the innovation, solutions, and resources that are so needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. we are seeing great innovations ushered in by digital empowerment at the grassroots level and post-pandemic efforts to build resilient and sustainable supply chains. We see clear opportunities for the private sector to make ambitious commitments around carbon emissions and around financing for development. We see the national initiatives are embracing gender equality and support for small and medium enterprises, which is key to unlocking economic growth. Within the Global Compact's network of over 15,000 business participants, our shared strategic ambition is to scale up the private sector's impact. And now is the moment for our local networks and our key partners in the ASEAN region to deepen their engagement. On climate, for example, our networks are collaborating to roll out the Climate Ambition Accelerator to help companies align their operations with science-based targets, which is a critical step towards the Paris Agreement. We are keen to bring more companies into the fold. One of the exciting sessions today will also discuss how SMEs can contribute to transformational change. Our Thailand network is planning to launch an SME clinic to engage participants in using the Global Compact's soon-to-be-launched SME Toolkit. Furthermore, the Malaysia and Brunei network is launching a Center of Excellence for SME training and capacity building. And the Philippines network has pivoted towards SME-focused post-pandemic programming. And this is just a snapshot. Our 15 networks throughout the region are working relentlessly to scale impact on the ground. The Asia-Pacific region has the potential to be a torchbearer, not just for this region, but for the wider world. So I urge you to be torchbearers and to accelerate your efforts towards the 2030 agenda. I'm confident that you will. The UN Global Compact is here to work with you side by side, uniting business for a better world. In closing, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to the Executive Secretary, Armida Alisjahbana, for her support of this event. I'd also like to warmly thank Geeta Sabharwal, my friend, and the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Thailand, and her team for being champions of the UN Global Compact. And finally, I wish to commend Network Thailand, led by Executive Director Tanya and her team, and the other ASEAN networks for their passion in putting together this event. I wish you all the very best for a great event. Thank you for being a key part of our Leaders Summit.
That was incredibly inspiring indeed. Thank you very much once again to Ms. Ojiambo, and that was wonderful. And I am so sure that we will have a chance to welcome you to Bangkok in very soon. And next, I have the great pleasure to invite on stage the Chief Sustainability Officer of Rajadamnern Group and the Secretary General of Global Compact Network Thailand to deliver his keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a great pleasure to welcome Kun Noppadon Det Udom on stage. Please welcome.
Welcome to Thailand. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to speak on behalf of Global Compact Network Thailand. I appreciate it and the invitation and recognize the hard work of the UN Global Compact team that made this event possible. I'm honored to be joined by our friends from throughout the ASEAN region, especially Global Compact Network in Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei. We meet today as ASEAN and the world is facing great difficulties and the hardship on one hand, but also tremendous opportunities on the other. The ongoing COVID pandemic, the conflict in Ukraine, intensifying impacts of climate change, rising inflation driven by energy and commodities prices. All this and more seems like a perfect storm of crisis that we must face all at once. But they can also serve as a wake-up call, a preview to what might happen if we fail to act on vital sustainability issues. This situation provides an opportunity for us to rethink the path of social and economic development and the role of and responsibility of the business sector in shaping the global sustainability agenda. The UN Global Compact was set up to direct the power of business as a force for good. It started with recognitions that businesses have contributed significantly to create and intensify most of the world's major problems today: climate change, biodiversity loss, air and water pollution, inequality, and violation of human rights. At the same time, businesses possess the resources and capabilities to help solve these problems. As business leaders, we must shoulder the responsibility of not only addressing our own negative impact on environment and society, or the do no harm approach, but also go further to utilize our energy and expertise to actively help solving these problems. It's an encouraging sign to see more and more businesses embracing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in their core business considerations, becoming an active participant in the global effort to address the 17 key sustainability challenges. But despite progress in many areas, much work remains to be done. For example, despite the increasing numbers and more ambitious nature of climate commitments by countries and companies around the world, and more widespread adoption of clean energy, we are still not on track to maintain global warming under 2 degrees, let alone the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Despite more actions by consumers, businesses, and governments on plastic pollution, the world still releases 5 to 10 million tons of plastic waste into the ocean each year. Thailand, for example, moved from being number 6 largest contributor to marine plastic waste to number 9, only a slight improvement, but it is estimated that more than 20,000 tons of plastics from Thailand still get released into the sea. It may seem daunting that in spite of all of our efforts, we can see only a small progress. However, this means that we have to increase our efforts, adjust our strategies, share our learnings, form partnerships for meaningful collaboration, and scale up our actions. Global Compact networks such as GCNT and similar networks in ASEAN and throughout the world serve as a forum to do just that. Today, we will discuss on how business leaders can come together to drive concrete actions on SDGs. Our conversations will highlight how the ASEAN region has been a leading example within the wider Asia-Pacific region in building back better together in a post-COVID world, and cover areas such as climate, biodiversity, and social development. Ladies and gentlemen, the perfect storm mentioned earlier could be considered as a blessing in disguise to prepare us for what's to come. Time is running out and we need to act now as our survival depends upon it. Thank you very much. I wish you all a fruitful discussion today.
And once again, thank you very much, Kun Noppadon De Udom, for the great speech and the call to action. And next, may I now invite the Secretary General of Securities and Exchange Commission Thailand to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome คุณอรื่นวดีสุวรรณมงคลขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับคุณอรื่นวดีครับ Please welcome คุณอรื่นวดี on stage.
Good morning, Her Excellency Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the UN ESCAP, Ms. Sanda Ojembo, Assistant Secretary General and CEO, UN Global Compact, Ms. Geeta Saprawal, Resident Coordinator in Thailand, คุณนพดล เดชอุดม Secretary General Global Compact Network Thailand, Mr. Lee George Lam, Chair of the ESCAP Sustainable Business Network, distinguished panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank United Nations Global Compact, UN ESCAP, and the Global Compact Network Thailand for organizing this event, the Uniting Business Sustainability in ASEAN, which is part of the 2022 UN Global Compact Leaders Summit to promote cooperative and effective solutions in driving economic growth and accelerating progress toward the UN SDG and Paris Agreement objective in the ASEAN region. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to join you today. Thailand, as you all know, has embedded the commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals and its nationally determined contribution, or NDC, in its 20 years national strategy. At the COP26, the Prime Minister clearly expressed Thailand's willingness to fight climate change, aiming to reach carbon neutrality in 2050 and net zero emissions by 2065. This helped set a strong signal and direction from the top, which are well received by every organization, including both public and private, in order to shape their ESG direction, policy, and strategy. As the Thai capital market regulator, SEC Thailand fully commit to promote the development of the sustainable investment climate and responsible investment business in line with the United Nations 2030 Agenda for SDG, believing that all enabling mechanisms must be put in place to advance the Sustainable Development Agenda. The SEC and all stakeholders, I must emphasize, all stakeholders in the capital market have developed a roadmap with an aim to build a robust, sustainable finance ecosystem. We envision a self-reinforcing flywheel driven by 6 key foundations. I would like to illustrate to you the 6 key foundations in brief. 1. The commitment of the issuer to the ESG and enriched data sources from the quality disclosure. I am pleased to inform you that starting of this year, SEC has requested all 700 plus listed companies to disclose as the first time, mandatory for the first time, their sustainable report, which include 1. Carbon emission, and 2. Business and human rights. 2. Financing tools whose features are well aligned with a variety of issuers' objectives. 3. The market force from the investors demanding a sustainability business model. 4. Supporting the local reviewer and, more importantly, the local taxonomy. 5. Launching a sustainable bond information platform. And last, establishing a strong cooperation and engagement from all stakeholders, both domestic and international. In addition, in August last year, the National Financial Authority and policymakers in Thailand, which include Ministry of Finance, Bank of Thailand, SEC, and Office of Insurance Commission and the Stock Exchange of Thailand, have joined hands in hand and launched the so-called Country Sustainable Finance Master Plan to further cultivate the crucial foundation across the entire financial sector, which will help create even greater and wider impact. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some clear examples of SEC Thailand progress toward SDG contribution. We expect that a strong collaboration among key parties, including Global Compact Network Thailand, which contribute the achievement of the SDG. SEC Thailand seeks to increase the knowledge and the sense of the ownership of the SDG with the support of national government and international organizations. The awareness raising and communication campaign for listed companies, including the supply chain, should aim to build a commitment of institutions and other stakeholders to the localization of the 2030 agenda. As we commemorate our ACC Thailand 30 years this month, we will continue to embrace the principle of SDG as we are fully aware of the consequences and the sense of urgency. We have laid out our strategic plan 2022 to 2024 with an aim to enhance competitiveness, ensure inclusiveness, and strengthen trust and confidence in the Thai capital market. We are willing to drive our effort to ensure that the capital market is the key engine or the catalyst in restructuring and digitizing the Thai economy. We hope that this will help the country economy adapt to the changing landscape and be recognized in the international arena. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that taking ESG principle into consideration, as well as an effective coordination among governments, private sector, civil society, and the public sector, will be a crucial driving our future sustainable economic growth, allowing the world to rebuild better and meet the SDG goals by 2030. Thank you very much and ขอบคุณค่ะ
And once again, a round of applause for Kun Rün Wadi Suwan Mongkol. Thank you very much. And as we say, last but not least, we are joined virtually by the chair of the ESCAP, Sustainable Business Network, or ESBN. Ladies and gentlemen, and now please give a big hand to Mr. Lee George Lam. And now the stage is yours, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Executive Secretary Armida, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, congratulations on this today's event with the important theme of uniting business, sustainability in ASEAN. This is also a very timely forum because as we speak now, the world is still in the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are also facing this emergency mode situation. And this event is part of the 2022 Leader Summit, the UN Global Compact's annual flagship event. So it is a golden opportunity to bring together leaders in sustainability and also to bring more spotlight to the ASEAN region, which is the torch bearer in the wider Asian Pacific region, particularly in our collective efforts in building back better together in the post-COVID-19 pandemic period. It is in this context that the ESCAP Sustainable Business Network has been working hard to put together a Green Deal for business, which is an action plan to call for specific actions to be taken across green energy area, green infrastructure and logistics, green finance, green innovation, green production, consumption, and waste. These are important pillars of the green transformation are really the key areas for collective efforts from the business sector. The business sector, as Executive Secretary Armida said, has a vital role to play. We are indeed very privileged because we have the best access to financing for development and science, technology, and innovation resources. So it is our responsibility and our opportunity, also our honor and pleasure to take the lead in working more closely, faster with governments and communities towards achieving an inclusive and sustainable future for all of us, particularly in this region, because the ASEAN region is a key driver, torchbearer for Asia Pacific. So in the business sector, if we work together with governments and communities closer and more closer and also faster and with more effort, particularly with more green solutions, smarter solutions, then we can together bring more big investment to the table, including ESG investment. We can bring more technical support to help, particularly in the deployment of green energy and renewable energy. And we can bring about better regulatory changes, for example, more and better sustainability reporting and monitoring. And we can also bring about more educational efforts and impact in developing the young people and helping SMEs. So in conclusion, I appeal for captains of industries and major companies across industry to take the lead in working with governments and communities together and to implement SDG 17 together successfully. Time is of the essence, and we need to unite business and mobilize business for achieving a sustainable and inclusive future for all of us. Thank you.
The chair of the ESCAP Sustainable Business Network, ESBN. Thank you very much for your inspiring words from Mr. Lee. And that will spark today's thought-provoking discussions, I believe. And despite ASEAN's potential, a lot of challenges await the region to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And our next panel will delve into these challenges and discuss the importance and value of setting and integrating these ambitious goals across their operations and supply chains. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, and here is our esteemed panel. May I introduce you the panelists of our first session today. We have the Chief Sustainability Officer of Asia Pulp and Paper Cinemas, Ms. Alisjahbana. Please welcome. We have the Executive Vice President of Bangkok Corporation Public Company Limited, Kun Kloita Nuttapong. And next, we have the Director of Group Risk and Compliance of Edotco Group, Ms. Azara Anur. Next, we have the Chief Sustainability Officer of City Development Limited, Ms. Esther An. And the moderator for this session will be the Chief of Outreach and Engagement of the UN Global Compact, Ms. Sue Alchurch. Welcome, Ms. Sue Alchurch.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning to all of you here, and good afternoon or evening, or anyone else who is dialing in today to this fantastic session that we have. I have to say, I feel in a good mood this morning because it's really moving and humbling and wonderful to be with this panel of 4 really strong women who are doing great work to help us deliver the Sustainable Development Goals. So really take note of what they have. They have practical advice and thoughts on how we can all work together to make progress against the goals. Before I ask them a few questions, I'm just going to set a little bit of the context of what we're doing here at this panel today. Well, we know we're all here because we're committed to delivering against these goals, a better world and a protected planet for all of us. And we know that we're not on track. We're still behind the goal, so we really got to think about how we could step up and how we can make more progress. We know that in the companies in the UN Global Compact, 39% of them believe that the targets and the goals that they have set are not enough to deliver against the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're all looking as to how we can raise our ambition a little bit. We know here that the Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, ESCAP, has done a review showing that the region is not on track to deliver the goals in full. There are, however, some real plus points and high points in this region. So in education, industry, infrastructure and innovation, and also affordable clean energy, this region is ahead of as a sub-region ahead of other regions. So that's great news. But on the whole, we're still behind, particularly in renewable energy. We need some work to do. So we're all here thinking, what are we going to do? How can we make progress? The business community can play a significant role. It really has the innovation, energy, and commitment to make some real progress, which is why we're here today. And we know it's difficult. We know it's tricky. And that's what this team of women here are going to help us with. Some of the challenges that they faced, some of the ideas that they've put in place to help make progress. So we're all going to learn a bit from that. At the UN Global Compact, we also have some tools and resources that can help businesses. And in that vein, today we're very excited to launch the third round of our SDG Ambition Accelerator. That's a 6-month-long program. It'll be the third time we run it, and that helps businesses come together, set goals, understand how they might deliver against those goals, and put in plans and ideas to help deliver in their businesses. We've done it, as I say, this will be the third time round, and we've had a lot of success. We've run it now in 49 local networks across 80 countries, and over 1,000 companies have engaged. The good news is that those companies that have been through the accelerator have made some real progress. 3/4 of businesses going through that program have either set new goals, have increased the ambition of their current goals, or are in the process of doing that with a full integrated team in their business to try and work out new ideas and ambitions. And actually 95% of companies that have been on the program have actually found new business ideas with which to make progress against the goals. So I hope you'll see that we're doing everything we can to help the business community make more progress in this area. But that's enough from me. What we really want to hear is from these women who've actually practically put this in place, and they'll talk about the challenges, some advice, and the value and benefit of actually setting goals incorporated right into their business and right across supply chains. So let's ask some questions and go into some of the practical things that this team have been doing. So first of all, I'd like to start with Elim. I know that you've been doing some fantastic work. In fact, we met just last night and had a talk about some of that. So I'd like to start with an overall question for you. What does ambitious action for the SDGs look like in your business, practically? And maybe in this current situation, how has the pandemic affected your plans?
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the question. So I would like to explain that APP Sustainability Roadmap Vision 2030, when we start to planning, and one of the consideration, of course, how we can contribute to the SDGs, and included the Paris Agreement on climate. So the SRV 2030 covers 3 pillars into production, forest, and also people. So when we set the goals, of course, we have to understand what is the SDGs, and we prioritize to determine which goals that align with our operation or vision goals and strategy. And of course, after that, we set the targets, more reasonable target, and after we understand, of course, we can set more ambitious. And about the monitoring and evaluation, we use the SDGs compass to monitor, to make sure the progress, and we report through our sustainability report annually. And during the pandemic, I would like to explain that our business quite went well. And we prepared from the beginning, develop task force, establish almost like 25 protocols to make sure that all our employee and communities and people surrounding our operation keep safe. And within 2 years, no one of our operations shut down. We successfully running 100% by implementing the protocol, and also to make sure that we can trace, test all the employee who's infected, and make sure all the family also we can monitor, included community surrounding our operation. So that's how we make sure that the business and aligning with SDGs. I would say that it's really important to understand about how these SDGs can bring positive impact to your and aligning with your business strategy. Yeah,
thank you, Lynn. That's really helpful. And as you've summarized, it's also helpful for your business and how it's really helped you drive the business. I was also interested to hear all the work you were doing in the area of the pandemic and COVID. In fact, we know globally that 75% of the businesses, as measured in our progress report, CEOs believe that the COVID has heightened their need to work on sustainable development across their business. So whilst it's a real issue, it's good that it's focused us on some real progress that we need to make. So, Gloria, there's the same question for yourself. I would love to know from you, what does working towards SDGs mean in your business? And again, maybe how the pandemic might have affected.
Thank you very much, Sue. And thank you for having Bangkok here today. Bangkok Corporation, we started off as a refinery. And it's very unique because when we started off our business, we were very remote from the heart of the city. But now, the city is growing. So now we are at the very heart of the community. The community has been growing with us, and we've grown alongside them for almost 40 years. And I think the word of the day, or the decade, or the century is agility. So we need to be agile and adjust to the context or the situation. And Bangkok, knowing that the world cannot last long with fossil-based fuel, so we have now diversified our business into 5 businesses, and we're now into marketing renewable energy, synthetic biology, and natural resources. And we have set out a goal to be carbon neutral in 2030 and to reach a net greenhouse gas net zero in 2050. And as a energy company is rather challenging. So this is a picture just to let you know. This was when we started our business. It was a refinery up in the bank of the Alisjahbana River almost 40 years ago. And now we are in 5 businesses plus an innovation management business. And we set out a goal to, as I mentioned, to be carbon neutral in 2030 and to be net zero in 2050. And what we did was, in fact, we started off with the choosing or prioritizing 9 SDGs for our business a few years back. But last year, it was a good opportunity to revisit and refocus. So now we put climate action as the umbrella of everything. And we separate into 2 tiers. Tier 1 is in process. It's something that we can do in our own business. And tier 2 is after process. It's more like the CSR activities, what we do over and above our businesses. And that makes our focus a little bit more stronger. And also, we know what we do. And as I mentioned, and I think Kun Noppadol mentioned earlier, I think COVID-19 is a blessing in disguise. Much as we were impacted, I think 2020 was the worst year in financial performance for Bangkok. But our CEO and the management team kept telling our employees that we needed to be agile and we need to be prepared. And that make us much stronger coming out of the pandemic. Last year was the best year in terms of financial performance. So we went from, like the very deep hole to up there, and we will keep being agile. And also in terms of doing our CSR or sustainability activation, the pandemic also gave us some opportunities. For example, previously we did a school program for reading and writing, and enabling the teacher to help the students to read. Because believe it or not, still, this is the very problematic for Thailand, or I don't know, maybe a lot of countries. A lot of people cannot read nor write, but you don't know. People sometimes remember it as picture, and they think, okay, when they see this should be pronounced like this, but they can't read or write. So that's one of the fundamental problems that we'd like to tackle. And previously, we had to send the team to school and do all the monitoring and everything. But when came the pandemic, we used online program. And so from like 3 to 5 schools or provinces that we could reach, now we could cover from the north of Chiang Rai to the south of Narathiwat. So it's the agility and the fact that we can adapt and learn to adapt or adjust. So again, I know COVID has hit us in many fronts, but at the same time, it has also given us some strength to move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. That's really interesting. And indeed, you're right. It has actually focused our attention on the real issues of the world and how we need to work together on that. And actually, we found in our progress report, in our CEO survey, 45% of CEOs during the pandemic had actually raised the ambition of their goals during COVID. So it hadn't taken our eyes off the prize. And amazing to hear the work that you're doing. And clearly, that's reflected in the data that in this area, the sub-region is ahead of progress on education. So thank you for that. It does sound like it's very easy listening to you two. So we just need to be agile, which I know this is not easy. So it's great to hear that. And in the context of things not being easy, I'd like to move to Azara and ask you about the challenges. Because, of course, everyone is here sitting, how do I make this happen? So I'd love to hear your thoughts about, what are the key challenges that you faced as you put the SDGs into your targets, goals, and indeed tried to put that across the whole organization and supply chain, et cetera. And also, some of the examples you had of how you overcame those challenges to help people listening here. Thank you, Azara.
Sawadee. I was thinking about your questions, Sue, and I found that quite complex questions. I was like, I wish that's for someone else, but you're right, the challenges are just great. But first of all, let me just introduce EDOTCO a little bit. EDOTCO is an infrastructure tower company. We have about almost 50,000 towers as we speak, covering 9 countries in the in the Asian, Southeast Asian region. But what that means, right, these 9 countries, the total GDP of the 9 countries is about 2.7 trillion, which is smaller than the GDP of Germany alone, which is around 3.6 billion. It's just to give a taste of, the kind of countries that we operate in. And at the same time, whilst EDOTCO serve about 25% of the mobile market, 91 million of the population is still has no internet connections in these countries. And we heard many leaders have started to announce, especially during pandemic, that internet or connectivity is actually a basic human right, which is the first principle of the UN Global Compact principles, right? And not just that, the countries that we operate in, let's take Pakistan, for example, GDP per day, is around 3.2 US dollars. Only about 73% of the population has electricity connection. So we're talking about basic human rights here, in these countries. So for EDOTCO, since we operate in these 9 countries, too many challenges, but I would break it down into 3. The first one is the country level challenges. Different country of the 9 countries that we operate in has different level of sustainability maturity between frontier and developing markets. Different priorities, economic priorities are different, social priorities are different. And second challenges would be in the industry itself. I think most of us here hopefully would agree that there are so many standards out there. There are over 600 standards, I was told, which standard to follow for towers infrastructure company. We as a whole also, we are lack of directions, or in fact, we are not yet united in terms of the directions that we want to take in terms of our sustainability agenda or even reporting, for example. And if we go back to the third challenges, is that at the company level, right? We operate in 9 countries, 9 culture, 9 ways of doing things, and yet we are one group. So all these challenges together, when we look at country level, industry level, and company level, it comes back to how do we overcome? So I know you asked for examples, but I think if your company is one like EDOTCO where you operate in multiple countries, if you look at country level, you cannot operate alone. So this is where we have to work closely with the governments, with the regulators, because we need to understand what is it that that specific country needs. Yeah? Cambodia needs is different than Bangladesh needs, for example. And secondly, at industry level, I just came back from Towers Exchange event, which is an industry for towers infrastructure company, where we are starting to come together to sort of decide and analyze what are the standards that we need to follow, what is actually the common denominators or bare minimum that we as an industry needs to start championing and focus on. And thirdly, at a company level, of course, I think there's many things that EDOTCO has done this year. One of it is we look at sustainability as a compliance matter. It's not just about communications. So we park sustainability under my department, that is under risk and compliance. And we revamped a lot of our system by doing back the basic. I know quite a number of you are already advanced, but we actually restart our materiality calculations. We revisit our systems, our procedures. Like I said, the standards keep on changing, so we have to adapt to the changes. We hit our reset button this year, and hopefully we're going to launch our first sustainability report next month, inshallah.
Thank you. That was really helpful to actually put a spotlight on the difficulties. So you clearly have been agile, as Greta mentioned, but it's a tricky thing to do. So indeed, we hope we're here to help support you. And bring me now to Esther. So we've listened to some of the challenges, we've listened to some of the work that's been put in place in businesses. And Esther, who is a SDG pioneer for the UN Global Compact, has had a lot of experience in this whole area. So Esther, I'd like to ask you, you know that we're currently off track to deliver these goals in the region and in globally. With your experience that you've been doing, I wonder what would you say to CEOs about the need to take action and the thoughts that you might give to them in terms of putting the SDGs at the heart of a business.
Well, thank you for having me, and really wonderful to be back to Bangkok. The last trip was 2019. So yeah, and I think it's exciting to be here, and I think some of the previous speakers already say that, there's actually a blessing in disguise. We learned from COVID, and in fact, in 2020, 2021, sustainability or ESG really exploded into the mainstream agenda, whether it is the global agenda, national agenda, or business agenda. And last year I was at Glasgow, and everywhere we turn is like race to zero. So race to zero, SDG, or the 10 principles of UNGC, all are pointing to the North Star goal that we need a sustainable and low carbon future. And for just a quick introduction, City Developments Limited, or CDL, was established in 1963 only with 8 employees. And today we are operating in 29 countries and regions, and we are in the building and construction sector. And we know very well that this sector has high impact also, responsible for about 40% of global greenhouse gas emission. And even you are not in the industry, you are living in one, working in one. So people spend about 90% indoors. So how you use your building is very important, will create an impact as well. So if I may share that, I'm really very glad to have started the sustainability journey in 1995, focusing on conserving as we construct. But in 2005, that is the first turning point that we joined UN Global Compact, and really looking at what global best practices is all about. Because Singapore is a very small country, we can't just look at Singapore alone or even region, but we have to look at global practices since we are also talking to a global audience. And then in 2016, we embraced SDG once it was launched, first with 9 goals and now 14 goals now. And I think that is very important for us because it really provides the compass. And as building sector, we can't just look at infrastructure, innovation, technology. But we also have to look at, some other aspects like, equality, labor practices, and human rights, because we rely a lot on migrant workers as well in Singapore. So, of course, even sustainable finance and all that. If I could share that in 2017, based on the SDG, we launched our sustainability blueprint. We called it Future Value 2030. And we set our goals and targets that align with global goals 2030. And in 2019, actually, we supported UNGC's 1.5-degree business ambition. That was an extension of 2018, which we actually pledged has SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiative, validated reduction target for our greenhouse gas emission. So all these are step by step. It is a journey. For those companies who are starting, there is hope. I just want to share our journey that, there is really, progressive steps that we can take to achieve where we want to, and we are far from where we want to. Because last year, we pledged to net zero by 2030 for building and new developments that is directly under our management, and by 2050, net zero for all buildings and all. So we need to follow global practices, follow, certain guidelines and all that. And I think UNGC does provide this very well. If I could just share quite quickly that how our strategy, for sustainability, there are actually 4 pillars that we look at. The first is integration. You can't do it alone. You have to, integrate the whole, ESG into your business strategy, engaging your board of directors and top management, mid-management, on-site, off-site, headquarters and subsidiary. And not just your own internal stakeholder, but the whole ecosystem. And I can share a little bit more on the supply chain, which is very important, that bring us to, SME. How can we get them on board as well? Then the second pillar is actually innovation. If we talk about net zero, even when we pledge, net zero, we know that with today's technology, we will not be able to achieve it. But we have this 7 or 8 years that we have to really push hard. With ambition, then you drive action, okay? Then innovation don't come free. So the next pillar is investment. And that was also why we have expanded very actively in tapping on sustainable finance. And businesses, yes, we can do, contribute, but we need funding, we need, alternative source of funds, and that's why in 2017 we rolled out the first green bond by a Singapore company, and since then we have already moved to sustainability-linked loans and other facility. And what we are proud of is 2019 we we launched the SDG Innovation Loan. And with our largest bank in Singapore. And together we rolled out this framework that is connecting SDG with innovation. And we actually, after 2 years, we came up with really good innovations that drive change, and the bank gave us a discount, so which is very hard to squeeze money from banks, as you know. So definitely, like just now, Mr. George Lee was talking about ESPN. I was really, really honored to have joined ESPN last year, and it's a wonderful, green deal that we are working on, and businesses do have the responsibility and the ability to drive change. And last but not least, we share your pain, impact. How do we share our impact, positive or negative impact? How do we report it according to a global standard that everybody can understand? Whether I talk to Europe or America, everybody understand the impact that we are talking about. So the SDG Compass is very helpful to look at, provide a common language for us to share with our investors. And with good sustainability results or report card, We have really gained better access to ESG funds, which is fast growing, and also sustainable finance as well. So I will stop here first, and then we'll continue later. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Esther. Well, I think for anyone listening to all of this, to all of you, it's incredible to see the work that you've done. It's innovative, it's raising finance, it's really making progress in the Sustainable Development Goals. So obviously working with the local networks, you can connect and have advice and be able to talk to companies like yourselves and help us all make progress. But also, as I said before, we have the SDG Ambition Accelerator, a very practical program that you can go on. If you're starting on this journey, that's a really good way to understand how to prioritize, what should my goals be, etc. And I know that, Elimi, you've been through this program, so I think it'd be really great to hear from you. You know, how did that help you get on the journey of setting goals, having ideas to make progress?
Thank you, Shu. So in 2020, APP joined the Ambitious Accelerator program for SDGs, and we found this program is really helpful, of course, to review or recheck our strategy is ambitious enough, and how we can accelerate for the implementation, of course, and this happened within our internal on how we can we start to review our policy again and which one missing, and of course also to make sure that which find opportunity internally, how we can push and accelerate the implementation. Because without implementation, the impact will not come. It's not only set the target, but the most important, like what Esther just now, engaging the board, engaging the internal included operation on how our goals can be achieved by accelerate the implementation. So this program really helped us to check our internal from the policy level standard operating procedure to make sure that all the goals that we already set aligning with the SDGs goals that we have prioritized can be implemented well, and we can find again the opportunity which part that we can stretch the target, which is right now also we working with one of the consultants to again remap setting, including we exploring SBTI on how we can contribute going to net zero by 2060, which is our government already set the goals, and we also part of the government target on how we can achieve follow net sink by 2030. Because of APP, one of our raw material coming from the plantation. So of course, this is one of our responsibility to also contribute to the goals. So I think really important to really helpful this program to help the company on how we can make sure that all the strategy or the vision that has been set align with all the implementation on the ground. Yeah. So that's,
Thank you. Very, very helpful to hear that practical advice and experience. I'd like to move now to you again, Claudia. You showed us at the beginning that you've made this enormous shift and agility towards the 5 new pillars that you've had. It's really interesting. And also you mentioned, all of you have mentioned spontaneously, net zero, human rights, education. So how that's working towards us delivering the goals, it's great to hear. I think what would be also interesting is to understand how working towards these sustainable development goals has indeed helped your own business results. I'd love to hear that practically.
Yes, thank you again. I think, in fact, all these goals have been embedded in the business, forever, but it's just how you systematically put it in place and help, especially our own employees, visualize. But I think by now, it's quite the awareness level is quite there. Before that, it was like those colorful 17 goals, but now people are more aware, and especially communications have been done internally and externally, and also with the help of the Global Compact Network Thailand. If I were to mention, we've been trying to raise awareness on that, and I think if we were to look back 5 or 10 years before, compared to now, we've come quite a long way, and congratulations on that. Still a long way to go as well. as I mentioned, when we set the climate action as the umbrella, it doesn't mean that we completely ignore the other goals. Or even when we prioritize the 9 goals, it doesn't mean that we completely ignore the rest. One thing work with another. And also it also help. If I were to focus on perhaps 2 initiatives, the climate action also helps us work with all the other goals, like the water management. Because of course, in the refinery, we need to use water, which is a very scarce resource, very efficiently. We need to reuse and recycle and make the most use out of it. We also work with the community, to make sure that they have good environment to live in. On the sequestration side, we also work with the people in the east, Gokmak Island. We now working on a seagrass project, which is one of the best nature-based carbon sequestration. So that's again, life underwater and a few other things. So that comes all together. And what it also helps is in terms of recognition and branding. Of course, when you are a good citizen and you do it from within, then you get recognized. Not that we are after awards or anything, but that's something that would be good for the business and also for the employees. Or the work that we do with the community, or the work that we do for our workplace to be a good workplace for our employees. I want our company to be a happy workplace, for example. So the fact that we have this gender and equality issue on the table, LGBTQ is no issue for the company, and we do recognize them. We want to be inclusive. So, and again, we were recognized with awards and other things. But what was most rewarding was that our own employees feel that this is a good place to work for. And also, like last year, we were number 17 in if I may just, number 17 in the top 20 companies that the new generation would like to work for example. So I think this come together. And again, all these are not just the colorful table anymore, but it means something. Yeah. And I congratulate the UNGC and the ESCAP also on that. And I think together we can still collaborate to make it work further.
Thank you, Gloria. And also you mentioned earlier on that you'd had this fantastic financial year after a difficult year. So it's true that working hard in this area is good and positive for business results. And indeed, the employees definitely, young people want to work for companies that are committed to this. We see this all over. And we know that the CEOs are saying that it's customers, consumers, and employees that are driving their interest in sustainability as well as investment, and less regulation these days. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And one thing you mentioned as well was about collaborating with others to make this happen and how that works. For sure, we need to be working together on this. And so, Zara, I'd love to bring this question to you about collaboration and maybe how you've done this and how this has helped you progress your business and progress towards the goals, either within your industry or across other sectors. I think it'd be great to hear from your experience in this area.
Thanks, Sue. I cannot think of any sustainability initiative that we can do alone without the support of others. That itself is an answer in itself, right? But I think if we go back to what I mentioned about country level, industry level, and company level, if we take a country level, for EDOTCO, for example, we are based in Malaysia. So it's very important for us to support the government goals as well. So Malaysia has recently reaffirmed our commitment in the 12 Malaysia plans, where sustainability is the main agenda part of it. So we need to understand, like I mentioned earlier, what are the things that we can help and support the government, right? So right now we are working with the government agencies in terms of the 100 million trees target. And at the same time, at the country level, we have UNGC Malaysia, who has been very supportive of a lot of EDOTCO initiatives. When we did our waste management program, we recycle used cooking oil, something that people don't really talk about. We collaborate with UNGC Malaysia in order to make that event a success. So that's at country level. If you look at industry level, it's a very competitive industry, I must say, but we still can work together, right? So when I went for the Towers Exchange event in London last month, it's important for companies like EDOTCO, where we learn from those who has done it before us. Take Cellnex, for example, or Vantage Towers, where they are much more ahead than us, so we learn from them, and we collaborate in terms of, what are the things that we can do better for the industry. But I think more importantly, at a company level, this is where we can control, right? We have control of that. So I think this is where doing business responsibly and innovation, I think a lot of panelists mentioned that. I think it's not just a word. It is something that you have no choice, but you have to do it. So for example, at EDOTCO, what we have done, our in-house engineers, we developed what we call a network and planning analytics tool, where we can identify where we should build our tower. We can reduce the build and the delivery time, and that means we can help to bridge connectivity better. We can help to connect people better. Remember, internet nowadays is the basic human rights, right? And in order to do this, we work closely with our customers, which is telco companies, with the MNOs. We work with them and collaborate with them in terms of such effort. And at the same time, we complement our network tools just now, which is what we call NAPA, with our digital twin, where we use drone technology to capture images, where we can help to maintain and our towers remotely without physically being there. So this is very important in terms of health and safety measures, where we can do remotely, utilizing artificial intelligence, machine learning. All this comes with innovations, and none of this is work alone, right? In-house engineers develop it. We still need to have approval. We still need to get buy-in from our customers. We still need to sell the idea to the countries, to the ministers of various countries, for them to use it, in order for us together to help to identify, for example, 5G sites. Again, to bridge the connectivity, to help the underrepresented to have internet, which is a basic human right in their lives. So yeah, so I can't think of anything that EDOTCO can do alone without others. And I think we have been very privileged to have a very amazing support from the governments of the countries that we operate in, and we look forward to more collaborations in the future.
Thank you very much, Zara. And yeah, I think collaboration is at the heart of everything we do, and I'm sure that all the local networks here are helpful in this region to help us build up collaboration, have more sectors working together, because surely that's how we're going to deliver against these goals. Now, Esther, for you, stepping back, listening to all of this, we've heard about the challenge, we've heard some great ideas as to how to do that, we've seen some great business results behind this. I'd like to ask you to step up and think about the ASEAN region as a whole. We know that we have more to do, just like any region in the world. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about, what are the particular challenges that this region might face, and any thoughts you have about how we can address them.
Well, happy to say that ASEAN is always the best place to really apply SDG, leaving no one behind. Because, I mean, of course, we are proud to be the third largest populations in the world and set to be the fourth largest economy. And I actually just caught up with some latest data. The median age in ASEAN is about 30 years old. And this group of people, fast growing, 220 over million, will form a really driving force. Young people have their own mindset that also have the ideal for the future. And they will be our consumers, our employees, our investors, so they will be really the driving force pushing, it's really a growth engine. And for us as a developer, we also have to look at, we are not building for the past or today. We're building for the future. So how do we design home, And during COVID, we have also learned that home is no longer just for living, but also for working, for social space. So how do we develop design a space that is for both physical and mental health is very important, and for social interaction is very important. And these are the so-called, consumer activism are going to drive change. And at Glasgow, we have seen so many young people on the street or inside, the ground of COP26, and their voices are real. And I think we cannot neglect that. And if businesses are smart business, they will look at the future. Don't look at just the past glory or today. And I think that's why the whole world is pushing for so-called TCFD, which is the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. In the past, ESG was considered as, okay, good to have. When I started 20 over years ago, everybody is like, why green, what for? Green is money, it's cost. But today, the cost of inaction will be higher than the cost of action. Because, like for example, like Singapore, we announced the pledging for net zero in February. It came with a lot of regulatory changes. First, carbon tax. Now $5 per ton, 2 years, 5 times. Another 2 years, 9 times. By 2030, it will be all the way to $50 to $80. And we are not just looking at Singapore, but we are operating in different countries. And Europe, US, the price is, really, really high. So from the business perspective, and embracing sustainability has never been a stronger business case as of now. So if you don't prepare for the future and you don't conduct, climate change scenario planning, you don't know what is, going to be your impact, you can't manage. And that is also why what measures gets managed. And that is also why the SDG, disclosure, compass, and all those are really helping us, which are the 17 goal, 169 targets. I always share with some of the corporate who are starting out. They say, Esther, I'm really giddy. I don't know which one to start. So I always tell them that not the more, the merrier. Okay, conduct your material issues. Every country, every industry, every company have different issues. You can't cover everything. Yeah? So identify what are the most materials to your business. Ask your internal, external stakeholders. We started in 2014, the annual materiality study. It really helped us because what we think is most important may not be aligned with my investors or my consumers. So how do we know to have a very objective view that materiality study provide the direction? And after that, you have to also map what are the risks and opportunity. Today, climate risks are really investment risks and business risks. If you don't know your risks and you don't know how to mitigate, your business will not survive. And now with the urgency, mitigation is no longer enough. We are talking about risk adaptation. And that is also why we talk about innovation, technology application, tap on new, thinking, new mindset, new skill set. And in Singapore, actually, we're very honored to have started to build this Sustainability Academy in 2017. Partnership, with 6 government agencies, 15 industry partners, and we gave half of the space to Sustainable Energy Association Singapore, which have tied up with ADB, and we actually build capacity for sustainable energy professional and bring in technology. So that is a space that we design and build it to a net zero building. So we provide a physical platform and we provide a platform for people to really exchange, interact, and learn together because sustainable energy is the way forward. And if you don't bring all the brains and technology together, you can't move the needle. And of course, because youth are really the power, okay, we have our youth called Climate Network, we established in 2017. And one of my favorite goals is number 5, right, gender equality. So in the building industry, it's always male-dominated, especially when I joined 2 decades ago. So I established a Women for Green Network since 2017, provide a stronger presence and voice for women. We work with guys, so we love to work with guys also, but we really need to provide women a little bit more confidence and a space for them to speak up, in board meeting, in international platform, in business platform. And we have seen a great progress. And even at CDL ourselves, 68% of our staff are women. 50% are head of department level. But we still have more room, to grow for growth, especially at the board level. And well, there are a lot of, opportunity for partnership, and partnership really amplify voices, action, impact. And I think that is the future, and that is what SDG is all about.
Oh, thanks very much, Esther. So you mentioned a lot of great things there. You talked about the youth of the region and that being the future. I really believe that it's phenomenal how strong younger people are in this whole area, considering human rights, considering climate, and how it's passionate for their future, and therefore they will be the future for us. They will lead our businesses, etc. So that's a great thing. You talked about collaboration, and you talked about prioritizing and materiality, and that's a rigorous process that companies need to go through. And you also mentioned gender, and you said that we need to give women more confidence. Well, listening to you four here, I think it's fantastic to hear your voices, and I'm sure that you are beacons of example to many women. Certainly have lots of energy and lots of passion coming from all of you, so that's wonderful to hear. And actually, just one quick thing you mentioned earlier on, Esther, was about supply chain and that being a challenge. So I'd like to finish up now with each of you mentioning just what advice would you give to businesses who are thinking on setting off this journey? How do they go about it? And in particular, Esther, I'd also love to hear, as you mentioned, your advice, your thoughts about supply chain. I mean, you mentioned it, and it's definitely something important. So yeah, your thoughts about supply chain, and then your final message to people who are thinking about going on this way. And then I will ask the same question about your final thoughts to someone who's starting on this direction afterwards. So Esther, over to you.
Well, okay. It's just simple fact. The SME account for 90% of global economy, and in Singapore it's very unique, 99%, not just 90%. So that is like no-brainer. You really have to engage your SME, and especially in the building industry, we have a long, value chain. And we work with architect, engineer, designer, and supply chain suppliers and vendors, and even tenants. And so all these are actually, many of them are SME. And how can we ignore that? And of course, when you come to rules and regulations, in Singapore, sustainability reporting is already mandatory. Climate reporting is now comply or explain. So everybody is struggling. And when we talk about net zero, we need to look at scope 3, which is actually 70% of our scope 3 are contributed by supply chain. So their footprint is my footprint. So it's as simple as that I have to engage them from, getting how do we design our building, how do we manage our building, how do we construct it is very important. Without SME, I can't achieve my, net zero build targets, and I cannot, achieve what innovate, and infrastructure and all that. And in fact, we have really tried to push the agenda, and we believe in really innovation. We have actually an incubator for SDG, we just established in 2019, and impact investing is fast growing, because when you talk about innovation, we don't just look at the established, innovator. In fact, there are a lot of young people coming up with very interesting, technologies and solutions. And two nights ago, we just have we call it SDG Open Hack, which is a partnership with University of Geneva, University of Tsinghua, and NUS, and all the university in Singapore. So we are going to bring it to the region as well with this partnership. We call it SDG Open Hack, which is basically encouraging JC to university students come up with technologies and solutions within 24 hours. And then we unearth really good talent, and we help them to develop their idea and get mentor and get investors to help them grow, because there's no end to R&D. And we can't just say that we only work with the big boys. You also need to look at, discover some of the unicorns. So not just in Singapore, we believe that there are a lot of youth talents in the region as well. So, and these are also SMEs. And, we also work with like our monetary authority and stock exchanges to help SME to start their reporting journeys, to start, to adopt SDG as well. And we just started a special dedicated sustainability training program for our board of directors, because you can't just ask all the managers to do the job. Your director have to also take the leading role, and we have a dedicated training for our director. Just the inaugural one just started 2 days ago, so I was really happy to share what sustainability is all about and how can we integrate it into your business to add value, not just for today, but for tomorrow. Yeah.
Wow, thanks, Esther. That's really helpful. I mean, that's a great piece of advice, which is make sure that you're training your leadership as well as your troops. Azara, I'd love to hear your thoughts. One message to anyone who's thinking about embarking on this journey and setting ambitious goals on sustainability.
I think don't be afraid to start small. It's okay, a different company is at different level of maturity. In fact, it's okay to hit that reset button. To recheck again, rebalance again what we need to prioritize. Business changes, the country changes, so many things changes in today's world. So I think if we start small and make our way towards the 10 UNGC principles, for example, that would be great. And I think secondly, my last point is don't stop learning. I love the idea like UN Accelerator Program and all this, which is great. But I think we need to learn from each other. It's a shortcut to a lot of things. At least that's what I learned as a student and even now, right? Somebody has done it a hard way. If it takes someone 12 years to figure it out, hopefully it takes me 2 years, which is better. So I think, again, don't be afraid. Just start now, start today. And learn. And I also hope all of you will be looking forward for EDOTCO's first sustainability report. I mentioned earlier that we're going to launch. So it's not perfect. That's what I told my stakeholders. But we've started. We've started and we take this seriously and we embed it across our business, across our footprint in all 9 countries and perhaps more as we continue to grow.
Thank you, Sarah. That's a fantastic piece of advice that I'm sure is warm to everybody, which is don't be afraid to start small, get going, make progress, and indeed that's a good philosophy for everything that we do in life, which is new. And Deutsche, same question to you. Advice that you might give anyone thinking about starting on this journey?
Yeah, I think it's I emphasized Esther's thoughts, commitment from the top. And again, we just elevated our board of directors. We have the subcommittees, and one was the committee on corporate governance, and now it's became the committee on corporate governance and sustainability. And of course, it's all about educating them and make them aware of this. And then after you have the commitment, you need to make sure that you walk the talk. It's no use just communicate and without taking any action. And you need to include all the stakeholders. So I always say that, we are quite accepted as a leader in sustainability, but we need to lead inclusively. So internally, externally, the community, the employees, the supplier, everyone throughout the supply chain. Because again, their footprint is also our footprint. So yeah, again, I emphasize what Esther said, and I think these are a few words. And the last word is unity. The theme of this conference. We need to do it together. It's the world of collaboration. You cannot just be a hero alone. Bring out the best of you and help the world together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Loita. That's great advice to everyone. And it's nice advice as well to think that we need to do this together as a group of people in humanity. So it's a great feeling. Ellen, you. Last piece of advice to anyone who's thinking of embarking on this journey.
Okay. From me, don't stop only aware, but I think understanding what is the goals that we want to achieve is really important. And also keep it in mind that we want to bring positive impact to our society, and it's really important to know, and of course we have to benchmarking, learning from other who has experience, and this is a journey. So we cannot, we have to drive the change. It's nothing simple, And of course, collaboration is really important here. Find your local network. I think Global Compact already provide a lot of tools, including the SDGs Ambition Accelerator program. So this is really good program to explore, and you can have a more understanding on how you can set or prioritize your target and the goals aligning with your company strategy. And I believe that something that you already understand, if you believe something that you can automatically drive the change. And before you believe, you have to understand what you drive or what you do. So I think together we can accelerate the goals, and we are all here. I think awareness level is enough, but now how we can drive the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Fantastic. It's been an amazing hour. I've really enjoyed every moment of it. I've heard some fantastic ideas, innovations, solid business case for this work. The realization and understanding that we definitely need to do this together. We need to collaborate and really need to learn from each other, because there are some fantastic examples here and businesses that are well on the journey, but everyone should get on board. We're here to help, and I know these for women are really here to help, and they've spent this valuable time here today. So thank you again to Ellen, Gloita, Azara, and Esther. They're here around for the rest of the day, for your time, your commitment, and it's really encouraging to know that we have people like you helping us to deliver these Sustainable Development Goals for a better world. Thank you very much to all of you.